what we need to do is just remember in these models, more or less, so this is still mathematical modeling. Continued, right? That the models, more or less, are defined as, or identical to, remember 3 lines means identical to. And then again, if you're an FBM major, this will make a lot of sense. If not, you probably ran into it at one point or another in your career at FIT so far as a student. But these models, the best way to relate them to are these profit loss statements. And that's equivalent to, if you were to put it in algebra speak, income minus expenses. Now, the little piece that I want people to be aware of is that with income specific, right, there could be multiple forms. Wait, that's spelled incorrectly. Multiple forms of income are possible. Right, because when we went over on Wednesday, those 2 or 3 examples, right, you saw that expenses, there's so many, right? You can subtract off an expense for putting money away for your savings account, and then for a bill, or for your rent, or a one-time payment because you needed to visit the doctor. Or if you're talking about in terms of a business, it's like the business account, and then also a mutual fund account, and then also the service fee for renting out, something of that nature. So multiple expenses make sense because whether it's your personal life or your business life, or even a combination of both, it makes sense. But income, generally people think, oh, I have one source of income, I have one job, but realize that you could have multiple sources of income because maybe you're a hustler, right? You have your primary job, you have your side job, you have your this job, you have your street job, you have whatever job, right? Or maybe something a little bit more conservative, if you will, that's a little bit less drastic, where you have your regular income, but then you do a little bit of, like me, for example, I'm always watching stocks. So even though you can't spend that money immediately, your income's going up, or your overall net value is coming up. Or you have stocks that pay dividends, right? So every quarter they give you a little bit of cash, and then you actually have that cash. It's actually real cash, not in the form of new stock. Or say you're a part of a family business that owns a building, and because you help manage it a little bit, part of the incoming rent from the tenants, you get that. So all the examples you've seen so far are just one income source, multiple expenses. But now I want you to realize that for the multiple income, and again, you can see this on the Google Doc as well, that there could be several things, right? You can have something that's exponential. As I mentioned very briefly at the beginning, we're going to work on summations, because the summations, they can technically grow at an exponential rate. But for now, you can think exponential, something like x squared, x to the third, or something that you guys don't see often. You have the variable in the base, so maybe x to the second, right? So this is, remember, fast growing. Fast growing. Okay, you can have something that's variable. Yeah, we had things that had variables in them, but sometimes I can provide something that's a little bit more vague, because you don't always know things that are set in stone. So like an A, a B, a Z, or Z, how do you think of it? And then last but not least, you can have something that's constant, right? So I'm not sure if there's anyone in this class, but if you're on a salary job, right? A salary job, you're not paid per hour. You just come in, you do your work, and then your paycheck comes however it comes, right? Twice a week. I'm sorry, not twice a week. Every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever the case may be, right? Your salary overall is already set as an annual salary, and then it gets divided up, and then that's not including bonuses and all that fun stuff. So constant is just a number, right? A number. Like $10 or $10 million, right? A single number where you don't have to calculate. So just keep those things in mind when we talked very heavily on Wednesday that, oh yeah, watch out for this expense, watch out for that expense, watch out for this expense when you're trying to understand it. Well, the same applies for the income too. And it's just on me as I'm writing and providing these examples to you that there could be other things too. So it doesn't throw you off just because you see homework and then you see a little bit of something different. All right. So example 1 for the day. And it pretty much be our only example. If you have the Google Doc pulled up already, remember you're on the Google Doc. It's labeled mathematical modeling in class examples. I created it myself. And then what happens is that I'll read you the first question. Again, we're not going to write it down because you don't have to. It's all here. And it says, suppose you have the following monthly situation. So you have, what is that, 4 bullets right there? Assume a variable positive income each month. You receive a grant every other month in denominations of $1,000 starting with the first month. The total payout to your employees each month is 1/10 your income, excluding any grant money. And last but not least, the office team works out of an office. Wait, that sounds weird. The office team. The team, just fix that right now, works out of an office. The lease is valued at $200,000, but you borrowed only 70% at 4.16% over 25 years. Now remember, I know I stressed this on Wednesday, but I cannot repeat it enough. Those first 4 bullets under number 1, or the white bullets, however you want to think of it, right? Those are components or Lego pieces to your building or components to our model. Even though I have the word leading question there, which basically roughly translates, if you remember, to make the model, that's what I'm asking you to do. You can see questions 1, 2, and 3 underneath, right? See how it has what is the outcome of the first month if your income was $10,000. So people see that number and they see all these other things. You don't look at that at all. Your model must be constructed first before you can answer those questions. So you don't want anyone here to flip-flop or go back and forth and go, oh, well, you said the first bullet and then I went to the first question. Nope, none of that. Do the first 4 bullets first, make your model, then answer the follow-up questions. So if we're following that pattern, right, I'm gonna write here, first bullet. And it says what? It says assume a variable positive income each month. Okay, and I know a lot of people, I mentioned this a little bit on Wednesday as well. Most people will go X, letter X. And it's like, okay, cool. I understand that you understand a variable for algebra, but be a little more specific, right? You want to be specific as possible, or you want specificity so that you can, well, you can recount this if you need to, right? So I would say write it in this kind of structure. Let X be our income such that X is greater than 0. That means that the piece we need in our model is obviously this X. However, this little bit about such that x is greater than 0, that is to align with the fact that it says that you have a variable, a positive variable, a variable positive income, a positive variable income. I said that backwards. A positive variable income each month, right? I am explicit, at least just in this example, that whatever money you have coming in, it's in the plus, it's in the black, as they say in business, right? It's not a loss, it's making you money, whatever the case may be, right? The second bullet right here, it tells you that you're going to get $1,000, but it's every other month. So obviously there's no calculation involved in the $1,000, but you just have to remember that it's every other month, not every month, every other month. This is your keyword right there. Starting with the first month, right? Starting with the first. Okay, third bullet says that you're going to, scroll up here. Third bullet says that you're going to be paying for employees, not a single employee, but however many employees you have. It's 1/10 of your income, not including the, what do you call it? The grant money. So in other words, not including the $1,000 because you don't want unequal or inequitable returns to pay your employees, right? You want a constant stream of income coming in. So you can write it as 1/10 x or just x over 10. Either works. So we don't want to forget, but here's your 1,000 again. And here is this piece right here. And specific to this problem, let me use a different color here. For the fourth bullet, this is the only one that has an actual calculation, right? And from now going forward, hopefully people remember that when you see lease, it means a present value annuity. And then you just got to make sure you know which variable to solve for. In this case, since I told you how much it was, we are solving for R. Okay. And then that also means that you're using this formula right here. PVI 1 minus 1 plus I to the negative n. Okay. And the unique thing about this problem was that we told you that, hey, your lease is worth, or the leased building is worth $200,000, but you only need what? 70% only. So that means that this implies that your present value is not 200,000, but it's actually 70% of this, right? So it's basically 200,000 times 0.7, and that's equal to $140,000 right there. So that implies now, if you're going to plug into the formula, it should look like this. The recurring payment is not 200,000, but 140,000. 0.0416. Remember, these numbers, I give them to you. They're on the Google Doc. So if you don't know where it's coming from, you should be looking at the Google Doc right now. 1 plus 0.0416. And remember, it's still valid that since it is a lease, it's okay to assume for this class, you're paying that lease off per month. Leases aren't paid any other way, unless you're bringing the cash up front, but then, that's super questionable. It's like, wait, where'd all this money come from? Is it money laundering? Or are you avoiding taxes somewhere because you're paying all in cash? You know, whatever the case may be. So you do that, and then it turns out that this comes out to, and I did this calculation already because I already had a class on it. It's $751. And is that 40 cents? Yeah, 40 cents. Okay, and that's the fourth part of our model. So when you read that statement that is more or less on every modeling question, and the one I'm talking about specifically is where I say, how would you represent the above monthly situation? I'm basically saying, make the damn model, right? Just don't go crazy. Don't do anything crazy. You're just trying to go, okay, how do I fit all these 4 orange boxes together? And again, that follows this notion of things that make you money, and you subtract off the things that cost you money, right? And notice how I did not dip, or we haven't dipped into any of the leading question. I'm sorry, any of the follow-up questions that are after the leading question, okay? And that's super important because, again, you don't want to go into something that isn't required yet. All right, so your model, I'll start a new page here. Yeah, your model or base model, you can think of it as your base model too, because it's your first one, right? It's what? What makes you money? Well, that X does, as well as that $1,000, right? What's costing you money? What you have to pay your employees, which is the 1/10 of your X, and then this monthly lease payment. What is that? I wrote in blue, right? Yeah. So minus 1/10 X and minus 751.40. So remember, before you answer any questions, you always have to give me the base model so I know where you're starting at, right? Base model or your model. Now that you've taken the opportunity to either label or calculate things out for your model, now you can start answering those follow-up questions. So, this is all the work, and it's a lot faster than we went on Wednesday, right? I mean, it's even faster than if you were there on Tuesday's lecture because I took the time to type out the question. That was a little bit annoying. But now you can see that it's all done. It leads to this base model right there. Those are all of our components, right? Bullet 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively. And now we're able to answer these questions, right? So question 1 here, or Q1, right? I asked you, hey, what happens if the income was $10,000? So say, I want to use a different color here. So they say X is equal to 10,000. Well, what do? You plug it in wherever you see an X, right? That means right here. That means right here. Now, if anyone's asking prematurely, right? Somebody might ask, oh, well, can't you combine those X's together? And the answer is yes, you can. However, I like to notate that you don't combine things until you read the entire question, right? So I'm just reading for you right now the first question, but we got 2 other questions here. So I'm going to write that here as well for you on the side here. Note. You could combine like terms, combine like terms, dot, 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 but read all questions first. Well, all the parts first. No, not the parts, the questions. I was right. Sorry about that. Right, because you don't know if you need to alter the model at one point, right? Because this first question is a calculating one. You plug numbers in, you get them out, and that's it, right? And then just really quickly, someone humor me by answering. If you have a single x here and you got 1/10 x here, you could do this calculation in one fell sweep, right? This was 10 over 10, which is 1x, and this is 1/10 x, right? How many x's or how many 10,000s do you have here? What's 10 over 10 minus 1/10? I know someone knows the answer. It's like subtracting fractions. How many tenths do I have? No one's gonna answer me? Who's here now? If I have a whole x, which is x, and I have 1/10 x, right? So a portion of it. And so the first x I said, I changed it to 10 over 10 because you have to have a common denominator, right? To add things together. So how many tenths of an x do I have? Come on, I know someone knows this. What's 10 over 10 minus 1/10? You could type it if you don't want to say it out loud.
I was about to say that 9/10.
Yes, okay, good. This is exactly what my other class too. I'm like, you bastards, I hate you so much. It's like, just tell me the damn answer.
I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not that great at fractions. Maybe if you put it in like the high sense, I might get it, but I get it.
All right, sounds good. You don't have to do it that way. I'm just saying it's quicker if if you happen to catch it. That's all. Okay, so I got Jessica, I got Serena, I got Maeve, I got Greg, Erica, and Alexa. Wait, where's Alexa's name? Did I not check it already? No, it's there. What about Erica? Ah, there you are. That's what I was missing. All right, cool. So yes, it is 9/10. So thank you, everyone. And good morning, everyone that trickled in. So do you have to do that? No, of course not, because the number's already there. You got 10,000, you got 1,000, you got 1/10 of 10,000, and then you subtract 751. Yeah, you can punch all that in your calculator, bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Okay. I'm just saying that watch out because there are homework problems. Maybe not this first homework that I signed, but the other problems that I have written in my textbook for you to do for homework after the fact, or some of the problems that I have in my textbook where, you remember, for those that were here on Wednesday, I told you, hey, start reading it. Well, when you read it, there's examples in the textbook too. Like the textbook is supposed to be, I mean, it's a super work in progress, as I keep on saying, yet the textbook is supposed to be something that you can read on your own and be able to do it yourself, right? Sure, instruction always helps, yet it's, since you all are familiar with me as your teacher, instructor, professor, whatever you want to call me, you understand my vernacular, you know how I speak, you know how I teach. So it's written in that familiarity as well, okay? So good, 9/10 is that representation right there, not a big deal. So for the second question now, it asks you, hey, what's in the second month's model? And this is why it's critical that you realize that this is a base model right here, right? That's specific to this right here. How I say base? Because you're gonna look every time at the first model you create, and when you transition to the second month, you look at it, you say, hey, what carries over, what doesn't, right? It's supposed to be just like your regular day life expenses. Oh, I gotta pay rent next month. Oh, I blew a flat tire and I had to call AAA and I had to tip the guy $20, but I'm not gonna blow a tire again the second month, or at least I don't plan on to, you know? And the other thing that I mentioned on Wednesday's lecture is that remember also that this piece of the $9,000, you do not carry that over to any following month. It doesn't mean that you lost the money. It just means that for calculating purposes and for understanding in this class, you have that 9,000 income. That was the first month. That's done. It's done in the books. There's no reason to go back in there and alter anything. You know, if you're going to give me a hypothetical fiscal year report or quarterly report, then you add everything up together. But right now you keep that alone so that you don't have to worry about bringing that in as another piece of quote unquote income for the model. And of course, is this the money you would dip into if you had more expenses and all that jazz? Yes, absolutely. But we're not worrying about that, right? That's really getting down to the nitty gritty. And we're just not at that stage. And honestly, we won't go to that stage, right? I just want you to keep things isolated month per month and then keep track of your expenses that way. Okay, specific to the second month, right? I asked you, hey, what does the second month's model look like? Well, again, you look at the base model and obviously you're gonna have some kind of income, but the key component is the fact that there's none of this $1,000 because I said explicitly that it was going to be there every other month. So that's not there, but this still is. And as well as your lease for the month. So if we're just going to write this up in a cleaner fashion, right? Your second month's model, which becomes your new base now, right? Second, sorry, not new base. I just mean your next transition. So your base model is always this base model up here. But what I mean by new base is that this is now what you're going to work off when you move to the third month, right? So minus x over 10 minus 751.40. So that's what I would be looking for the proper answer. Okay. Now the third month's model, this one is another reason why you don't always combine all your, whether it's your x's in this case, which I addressed earlier, or like, what was it on Wednesday's lecture? Like some of the expenses where if you had combined them, then some of them are omitted because they are no longer needed in the following months. I think it had to do something with break even possibly. But the point is that I keep the pieces separate or individualized because if something has to change with them, it's easier to attack it instead of having to mesh things together and then break them apart and refigure it out and all that jazz. The third question says, suppose for the third month, no, I mixed it up. That's funny, sorry. Fix this, please. I got ahead of myself. This is a 16 now because in the second question, I'm glad everyone's reading along. The second question, it says, suppose for the second month payroll needed to be decreased and if totaled and is totaled, not it totaled, sorry. Is total to now 1/16 of your income. What is the model now? I thought that was in the third question for some reason. So if you're writing along, right, for the second month right here, the 1/10 changes to 1/16. So just make sure that is clearly written in your notes. Obviously, I fixed it already in my notes or the notes for the class. It's just that I got ahead of myself and I thought it was the third question. Okay, so that's another reason why we don't combine, or at least I personally suggest not to combine variables early on because you don't know what needs to change. So imagine you had 9/10 and all of a sudden you have to break apart 9/10 and then you got to change it back to 1/16 and all that fun stuff. Okay, so then the model looks like this with the 16, and then you can even say a statement here, an increase I forgot a word here. Come on. an overall increase to the model, right? Which means that if you happen to call on Wednesday, right? I was talking about briefly how, what was it? There was an increase to the way how a model makes money. So you have to understand, when I say an overall increase to the model, that's the effect. So what's the effect? If you assume that numbers stay the same, right? This is now x. This is now x over 16 instead of x over 10. So what does that mean? Obviously, I said it right here, but just to deliver that point home, the payroll decrease, which means you cut salaries, right? People are being paid less. If you're paying less, that means your overall effect for the model increases, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll make more money. That's only true if, like from the first question here, that you made $10,000 again. We don't know that. It's open-ended, right? So when I say an overall increase to the model, that's the effect of this algebraic expression of having a fraction that is smaller, right? You subtract less. However, the outcome can still be positive or negative depending on how much money is made, all right? So just keep that in mind. So this is an overall increase to the model because you're paying out less, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to make more money. That's money in the physical sense. All right, now we can get to question 3. Apologies for that. So for the third month's model, what you realize is X comes back again, but now you get that $1,000 stipend back, or grant money, whatever I described it as in the question, right? Because it's coming back every other month. So that's legit. Now, also, unless I say otherwise, you're going to carry over the culminating effects of your model. So the base model had 1/10 X, and then all of a sudden in the second month it changed to 1/16 X, or X over 16. Unless stated otherwise, that you're going to go back and have the same effect or whatever the case may be, I will tell you. So it's always safe to assume that when you move from one model, base model, that's calculating, so don't worry about that 9,000, base model to second model, and now to your third month's model, you can carry over, again, unless I specify otherwise. And then 751, 40, and then that's it. So I know it may seem like I'm repeating. Oh yeah, I didn't write this out. So this is the third month's model. Third month's model. I know I may be repeating or reiterating a little more than usual. It's just I can't see your faces when I'm writing this, and I can't have it in a split screen where you're recording me or whatever the case may be. And